no clue how to plan. And I left wondering how on earth are we going to get that right? Because all these ideas that the prof is talking about are not going to happen if we don't have a proper planning system. What is the one thing we need to do to change that reality? Because half of the DGs are acting, then they are going to have clueless ministers who are going to supervise them, and then they're going to leave before their terms are over. It's chaos. How are we going to solve that besides changing the government?
Well, one of the things that in the animal kingdom that distinguishes human beings from the rest, although animals also learn, is that you have to feed the brain and they invent. And if you can't train people in planning, don't expect them to do differently. I've been there, I've seen. And there's no planning in the state. In the last few State of the Nation addresses that Msholozi did, 2 weeks to the State of the Nation address, the discussion was whether the 14-point plan or the things that are on the list are things to be in the State of the Nation address. It can't be 2 weeks. It must be over the period of 5 years. These are the things that the State of the Nation should address. And unless you pay attention to planning, you cannot do it. If you take the RDP, it defined the problem quite well. But it didn't diagnose what needed to be done adequately with matrices and so on. And subsequent processes were equally bad. In fact, defining the problems even so hopelessly that there was nothing that we could implement that could derive anything. We are good at defining hopelessly and jumping the whole thing and then going to a prescription. And each time we get surprised that the results we get are the results we get. You need to define the issues very, very clearly. Descriptive. If you call descriptive statistics, the averages and so on. But you also have to go into analytics. And then once you have analyzed, you have the possibility of diagnosis and prediction. And once you get to prediction, then you can go to prescription and then to modification. We are hopelessly bad in terms of that because we skip all these levels and we don't use data. We have data phobia. I don't think we'll get anywhere. Even today, I don't think we'll get anywhere short of focusing on how well we design our plans.
Why is that message not sinking in? You're Statistics General forever, and I'm sure you're not discovering this wisdom now. Where was your advice ignored? Because clearly, you are generating statistics for a purpose, so that somebody can take note of them and therefore act accordingly.
Why I thought I was Major One at the ANC Lekgotla in Mangaung, delivering the results of the census. There were 7,000 delegates. And I thought we would discuss those results. I was invited to China shortly after that. In China, the question was, what are the economic implications of the demography of China based on the 2010 census? After 2 weeks of really tough discussions, academia, statisticians, industry were all there. 3 resolutions were on the table. The first was, we relax the bedroom. Chinese will have 2 children instead of 1 child. 2, we will grow through domestic consumption. 3, we will expand our growth through export. And the domestic consumption will be driven by the 2 children without increasing the overall population of China, which is 1.4 billion. In South Africa, I was dressed in my yellow suit, and the ANC was yellow. It was cheers all around, and that was the end. And then we went into the National Development Plan. And that National Development Plan never had matrices that you can believe in. Statistics of Africa, let me tell you, has built data sets. And in fact, in my dying days as a statistician general for 5 years, I talked to the DGs. I said, guys, if you are not going to go through this path of data, forget it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're not leaving me with much hope either today.
No, not at all. I'm not hope.
But I want us to come to this because I think this is a method. It's something. It's a red flag for me. There seems to be social incohesion, Ms. Khan. I want you to at least address this. So even on things that we think are a solution, immediately you find a level of discontent that seems to reverse even what is possible as solutions. I mean, look at ESCOM, right? So the president stands and says, very buoyantly, yeah, we're going to divide ESCOM into 3. And then the union says, no such thing's going to happen because that's going to lead to job losses. Whereas I'm sure in his mind when he's talking about, let us do this to ESCOM, he was not doing that deliberately to cause a job loss that the unions, who are social partners, believe this is the way to go. Business on the other side said, way to go, privatize actually. Don't call it by its fancy name. Address for me, how can we deal with this social incoherence that seems to get in the way of this inclusiveness that we are talking about when we talk about inclusive growth?
Thank you very much, JJ. Perhaps we should start with saying that inclusive growth is not a technical or an economic term. It's about reclaiming our humanity. In the Drakensberg Forum last year, William highlighted this issue of the apartheid profit model. And then if you look at in the society, I mean in the economy, that we don't have one common voice because you have the corporate world. If I can just maybe, following on the apartheid corporate model, etc. I wonder how many of us know that foreign direct investment into South Africa was $190 billion. South Africa's foreign direct investment out of South Africa to other countries was $270 billion. Now, if I have to compare this to another emerging market, because the past 9 years I have been based between Turkey and South Africa, foreign direct investment into Turkey was $185 billion. Foreign direct investment out of Turkey by Turks to other countries was $45 billion. So I'm going to give that one point. The next point is, how is it that financial services in South Africa contribute 22% to our GDP, but we've had negative manufacturing, we've had deindustrialization. So where is that 22% contribution coming? So almost all of us have a funeral policy, etc. So how do we have this this one voice when we're not one nation and we don't have one profit model of how we work with our humanity to serve our people and to have impact? So my suggestion is that we need a commission of inquiry into the financial services. No. This one is to say, because we've been beating about the bush, the financial services industry disinvests in South Africa. You can't have social cohesion where you're saying, let the unions come together, let the captains of industry come together, but we're not acting for the same thing. Because what is our grand vision? We had a 2010, we knew what we were working towards, we had to roll a certain level of infrastructure, but what are we working towards now? I can tell you that with Turkey, they have Vision 2023, they want to be in the top 10 economy in the world, they have a plan for every single sector.
We have NDP.
NDP, but does the public know that? NDP, who I was saying earlier, is just, we use a lot of acronyms. But if you go to Turkey on the ground and you ask people about Vision 2023, the average population knows that. So coming back to the issue of social cohesion, we have to, if we don't do a diagnostics and say, why do we have this disinvestment? Why do we have this disparity? Why do we have excessive super profits being made and where the skew is towards executives as opposed to the people that are the machinery of the company or the economy?
Can I ask you, do you think we've run out of ideas? When you assess all of this, you listen to what the two colleagues have already said, do you think we've run out of ideas to a point where we now even need a commission of inquiry? With all these documents, policies, BEE, trade, this and that, all the acronyms that you have mentioned, 10 economic policies since the RDP, have we run out of ideas?
Absolutely not. It's just that we have 0.5% of the population whose voice is heard. Ordinary South Africans, the black intellectual class, the black business class, and I'm sure lots of them in the white business class have ideas. But the question to ask, who listens to them? Who's interested? There's a narrative because the 22% control that financial services industry that's controlling the economy wants to control the narrative, and then we use words like, international investors. We are actually doing positive FDI. And just another point, incidentally, that South Africa is the only emerging market that has the level of FDI out of, we have no counterpart if you just take out China. So
Okay.
I hope that answers your question. So again, we have hope, but we need to be inclusive.
Yeah.
We need to bring the ideas of the people where their hearts and their souls and their passions are vested in this land. And it's not about saying, I have my funds in the Isle of Man, or I have it in Switzerland, or I have it in Mauritius, etc.
Yeah. Mr. Diba, you are my only hope now. I want to understand quickly, if South Africa was a pupil at a school, right, and they were facing matric, how far are we? Would we at grade R or grade 12?
Minimum pass mark.
Oh my God, all right. Please tell me something. In terms of just interventions, I was at a conference where Professor Ibadian was there in 2011. He gave another startling statistic, that 200,000 small businesses in that year alone, I think it was 2012 or 11, had to shut down. 200,000, not 200,000 businesses had to shut down purely for being paid late. They had to close and go home, right? And there's always this emphasis about young people coming into businesses, women coming into businesses, small businesses being at the heart of taking us out of this misery. Do you see, as somebody involved in that area of small business development and having, with your observation, that can become the solution to all of these woes that our colleagues have shared with us tonight? Because I'm trying to find a straw to grab at that would result in this inclusive growth more than just a slogan. Please help me.
Thank you for at least giving me a question I could answer. Because I'm listening to everybody else's answers. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so I wear two hats. On the one side, I am a practitioner of BEE. I refer to myself as a privately paid public servant. It's becoming a painful job because of exactly what Ntatepadi is saying. Nobody's going back and saying, are we really doing the right thing? It is becoming more and more difficult to me to speak to my listed clients about empowering black people when I sit back and I reflect and I say, you can't actually empower people in an economy they don't own. So we sit with elements, ownership, skills, enterprise development. I've had extensive conversations with the DTI to ask a basic question. What did you use to decide the percentage of net profit that needs to be invested for small businesses? What was the basis behind that thinking? Oh no, we looked at the JSE, we saw how much profit there was, we figured this is how much money it needs to propel it forward. We proposed the percentage, that's how we got there. Okay, fine, you thumbsucked, that's okay. Now it's been 13 years, 7 years since the new codes. Have you reviewed? No. Okay, so how do you know that the 1% in enterprise development or the 2% in supply development is actually effective?
Or impactful.
So now that's where you get the push and the pull, where the intentions are correct. The principles are well positioned. The execution and the review to say, is it achieving what it intended to achieve, is shocking. And I feel it on the other side as well, because I have small businesses, some of which have closed for that very reason. You sold a dream, go get educated, that's great. I'm a CA, and I apply at a DFI, and I get told, but you should be able to raise your own capital. So now I'm too clever a black. No, because that's what it is. It's like they're happy to fund the internet cafe, create half a job, but, people that actually have jobs that have higher job multipliers get overlooked purely because you seem like you should be able to get it.
How
Let's
can we
put it in
fix
the
this?
media
How
first.
can we fix? Because this sounds like that's a good diagnostic. Even that NDP in its first chapter, I'm sure you'll find that what you are saying now.
No,
as
but
a
I mean, the
diagnostic.
NDP is, I think what we need to also appreciate.
I have a lot of hope in the NDP. Man.
No, we are still hoping. Many presidents later, we're still hoping. But I think the fundamental thing is that if you speak to any successful business person, they'll tell you, pick a few things that you can do and do them well. Now, we're trying to be all things to all people, all at the same time, and we're not sure where to focus on our attention.
Where should we focus? Give me one thing we should focus on to fix this.
For me personally, I think the conversation needs to be about what actually drives proper economic inclusion. So the problem that we're having, even with the ESCOM example that you're giving, is that if President Ramaphosa had started from a data point, and I hope he did, to say that the impact of continuing down this path will have this impact on economic inclusion versus shifting to this path, and therefore the recommendation to shift to this path creates this much economic value. It becomes an intellectual argument. Now what we're having is political debates about who wants which piece of land, first, last, in the middle, who wants what kind of economic freedom. We have no alignment about what is the one asset. If someone gave you one asset in South Africa, and they said this asset will give you exponential economic freedom, is it really land? Or is it really capital? Or is it really skills? We don't know the answer. So, and it's pulling everybody into this debate, and now it's becoming a land grab, a tender grab, everyone's just grabbing. And at the end of the day, the people at the bottom of the
I
rung
think there's
have
poor
nothing.
leadership in all of this.
Poor review.
Poor review
Which is a byproduct
of poor leadership.
of poor leadership.
Okay, that's where I want a premium Akura to come.
Byproduct.
Thank you.
Byproduct.
Thank you very much.
It must be on the record, byproduct.
Yeah, Premier, look, you have to help me here. Because you have to help me because the running thread is that of a little bit of exasperation, right? Whether be it about statistics or whether be it about lack of vision or be about, just basically just throwing our hands and say, these are good policies. The policies can fill this room. And they are good policies. I can vouch for them. In my life, I've been paid to promote them. But execution seems to be terrible. Please give me some hope. Just categorize it for me in terms of if you were to be president, and I believe you will be one day, and you really had power. I hope I'm not decampaigning you when I say that. But you had power to do 2 or 3 big things on inclusive growth. What will those be? Given the fact that there seems to be, in a sense, an assessment of poor capacity of the state so far, and then lately by young people even saying there's no leader of society anymore. That's what she's implied. She may have been polite. Please help.
Well, JJ, I don't know why you keep bringing me at the end. In Drakensberg, I was at the end. And yes. I tried to get out of this discussion today because I wanted to sit there and listen. But if I were to probably say that the value of the Drakensberg conversation should derive from the fact that the greatest number of people who were there, and I don't want to assume that that was South Africa, but the idea that we coalesce on inclusive growth is very important because we have come a very long way. There's been many areas of policy where there have been disagreements in South Africa. And I want to say that one of the important things that countries have made a decisive break when they had difficulties. Just think of China. There are many problems with China, but there are many things people celebrate about China. The decisive break of 1978 was a recognition that there's something that has gone fundamentally wrong in that country. You can pick up any country that if you reach a moment, if everybody thinks we are doing, there's really nothing wrong, and others say there's everything is wrong, and some say there's nothing wrong, you have a problem. You've got to fix that. But I think it seems to me that we are in a period in our country where, regardless of what different political or philosophical and other views, I would even say religious perspectives, we are at a point where we say there's something profoundly wrong in our country. So these conversations here, I think we need to say, of all the other things, what is one thing that is profoundly wrong?
Right.
No, profoundly wrong. Yes, we want to fix.
What is it? Because it's like there's an analysis paralysis with all the policies.
Yeah, I want to go back to them.
Each of them.
Yes.
Oh, they'll
Because
all have
if
to
the
plan.
problem is planning,
Yeah.
is that what is the profound problem of South Africa? Planning. And I'm not saying planning is not a problem. So there are many problems. But is that what the profound
He
problem
says
is?
it's absent. That's worse. It's absent. He says it's in Tata.
Yeah, yes, you can put it whichever way. But I want to summarize what he says as that, planning. And Prof, I think, talks principally about the economy.
Yeah.
And essentially talks about we need sustained growth, I imagine within the framework of inclusive growth. Growth is a problem. But is growth what the profound problem is? Growth, or a particular type of growth.
The lack thereof, which we have experienced over the last
But
9
we
years.
have had, allow me, you allowed me to be the last, yes.
But I know you are a politician and it's election time, so I need to
Yeah.
manage you.
Unfortunately, I'm not campaigning. What I would be doing with them, I wouldn't do if I was campaigning. I would simply say I agree with them. But you can see I don't agree that planning, the profound problem we face is planning. Because that we can easily fix. We can fix planning. If we want to get out of the period in which we are now, where we have multiple crises. If you go back to the bishop there, part of that is the moral crisis. Yes, part of that is a moral crisis, not just a technical skills. It's a moral crisis. Yes, the growth. But we have had a particular type of growth. It may have not been enough. But even if we had had enough of that type of growth we had, we would still be having a profound socio-economic crisis that too many people would still be excluded. Maybe the level of unemployment would not be where it is, but it would still exclude significant sections of the population, especially poor people. That's why it's not just growth which we must fix. Growth is important. We mustn't just fix growth. We need a particular type of growth. So she picks up on important dimensions of the problem, some of which I would say an important part of that is foreign direct investment, inflows and outflows, which I would say it's a signal of something else, an important indicator of something else. So to just summarize, I think one of the issues we must sort out is we have many problems, but what is the main problem we face? Because if we can't do that, we're going to go back to having many, many things to do, and everybody thinks that all those things are important. The typical conversation in South Africa is that every sector thinks what their issue is important.
The most important.
Yes, their issue is
So
the most important.
What is the problem? Now answer the question. You've asked the question. Answer it now. What do you
So
think is
what,
the main...
what is the profound
Yeah.
problem we face?
Yes.
I think we face, I would say, firstly, it was an economic problem that has mutated into a political problem because of a particular type of growth model could only result in the crisis of the state. If you have an exclusion, that exclusion would result, it would create a problem for the character of our state. If we don't have inclusive growth, it will definitely lead to a political crisis. If we don't have inclusive growth, if we have a development model that doesn't include everybody, it will result into a political crisis. I'm taking it, I don't have to explain a lot, because politics is not sustainable if an economic system excludes significant sections of the population. Politics is not sustainable.
Summarize for me what the problem is in one sentence. Because I want them to respond to that problem as their last bite.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So we started off,
We're out of time apparently. But
1994, we addressed the big part of the politics of our country.
Yeah.
Created a political system, everybody was feeling very well, and started to reform our state, reform our state. But the economic model, the economic path that we followed caught up with us, and we ended up now with a crisis of the state, all the other things, including corruption, which I think corruption is a big problem. But I would argue that corruption arises from a model of development that is inherently corrupt, that excludes large sections of the population.
Okay.
If we right from the beginning, so I'm more optimistic out of Drakensberg. I think Drakensberg, forget what their concerns are. I say Drakensberg has brought to the core that which has caused major dimensions of the problem. And that's pursuing an economic development model.
Unfortunately, I have to end.
That will solve our political and moral crisis.
We've run out of time, but I want to give each of you 30 seconds as a feedback, both to everybody here and to what the Premier has said, to summarize where we should be going. Just one thing quickly, 30 seconds, to say goodbye to the people. 30 seconds in terms of what we need to do going forward. I just don't want to leave it as an analysis point. Quickly, Prof. Okay.
You can have 5 years the president has pushed it this way, the next 5 years recording the other
consistency. Yeah.
3 years later, some of the middle and the one.
All right, let's leave it.
That's the problem. If you want, the fish has rotten from the head.
All right.
We got it correct.
Round of applause for the Prof. Thank you very much. Response, 30 seconds.
I have to go back to the point of planning. If you cannot have a system of planning, which is the horse that the politicians should ride as jockeys, then you really will via this way and that way. Because in the plan, you set your priorities, you sequence, you know when you should do what. The 1994 miracle, which made South Africa move out of extreme poverty, was a result of a plan. And of course, it was a spray-gun approach. But there had to be a transition through education. But we didn't do that transition through education. And now the education has collapsed. So all these collapses are a consequence of bad and inadequate and lack of planning.
Let's leave it
That's
there.
the point.
Thank you so much. 30 seconds. Thank you.
How do we get corporate South Africa to reinvest in South Africa? How do we get corporate South Africa to use that large cash pile that they have and evoke their humanity and say we are committed for the long haul because we want to have consistent 15 to 20-year growth in our economy and economy.
Commitment to South Africa. Thank you. Round of applause for her. Give me hope, please. Ms. Sidi.
I'll try harder this time. I think for me, the key thing is the benefit that we have now is the benefit of hindsight. I think when we started, we did the best we could with what we had. Now we have more, we have a responsibility to do more. I think when, we speak to Ntate by these comments around planning, let's reflect on policy and be critical and say what has worked, what hasn't worked, what has achieved what it needed to achieve, what hasn't achieved, what needs to be changed, and make those changes. But we can't just go down the same road and keep praying and hoping
for something
that
different.
the result is going to change.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause. You got the last word. 30 seconds. Leave us with something to hold on to.
I think we need to humanize economics. We need to humanize politics.
Okay.
We need to humanize planning. We need to humanize investment, even foreign direct investment. We need to humanize also the church. We must rehumanize also the church.
And humanize politicians.
I said politics.
Humanize the politicians.
Yes, everything. And
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Apologies, Chair, for taking more of your time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done, JJ. Let's give him a round of applause for a stimulating panel. Thank you very much to all the panelists. It's now time to eat, you'll be happy to hear. The main meal is a buffet, which is outside the door. We're going to play the second part of the conference once the buffet gets underway, but we invite you now to head. Maybe I'm going to ask the tables on the left to go first, so we don't all crowd at once. But dinner is now served, and we'll show the second part of the conference video.
Oh, Dodi, what shall we do? Sinzinjan.
What shall we do?
Baba Tapamore